This is one of the toughest spots I can ever remember being in.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I am at the airport right now. It is 8:30 p.m. We have a 10 p.m. flight out to Vegas. It is Saturday night. Looking to get in around 1 in the morning, hit the tables immediately, all for you guys. Just kidding, mostly for me, but excited to share with you guys. Really looking forward to hitting the ground running, starting to play right away. Just like I'm excited to start playing, I'm sure you guys are excited to get right into the hands, so let's go.
In our first hand played, I looked down at 7-5 suited from middle position. I limp for $3. It limps around, the big blind checks, and we are 4 ways to a flop of Queen 8-6, 2 diamonds. I check, and it checks around. The turn is now the Jack of diamonds. Under the gun bets $15. We're still open-ended here, a little worried about diamonds, but for $15 I make the call. The button calls as well. The river is now the king of clubs. Under the gun checks. With a bet on the turn and then a check on the river seeing 2 callers, Under the gun's hand feels like a 1-pair hand at best, just trying to get to showdown now. The button just calling the turn and not raising means he can't really be very strong either. I know one thing for certain, neither of these players have a flush. So I decide to take a stab and represent either a flush or maybe a rivered straight, and I bet out $30. I do think if I were to take this line, I should have decided on the turn and raise the turn rather than go for it here on the river, but here we are. The button folds, but unfortunately Under the gun makes the call. He shows ace jack off, and that is the sort of hand that I thought we were up against. $30 was just way too small of a sizing, and furthermore, I should have raised on the turn rather than just taking a stab on the river. But we live and learn. In our next hand, we look down at pocket jacks and the hijack. I opened at $15. The button and big blind both make the call. The flop comes 9-6-3, 2 diamonds. Big blind checks. I see bet out for $15. The button now raises to 35. The big blind folds, and I briefly consider re-raising here, as I just don't believe this button player at all. This is a great spot for a raise being on the button. Furthermore, I can't quite put my finger on it, but my gut is just telling me that I don't believe this guy. However, I decide for the lower variance route and just make the call. The turn is now the queen of clubs. I check, the button bets out $60. There are now 2 flush draws on board, some straight draws out there as well, a lot of things that we could be beating, and we do still have second pair. Once again, I make the call. The river comes the 5 of hearts. I check, perfectly happy to take my jacks to showdown. However, that's not going to happen, as our opponent bets out a 3rd time, now for $100. This kind of feels like 6s or 3s, maybe he flopped a set on us, but both flush draws miss, as does the most obvious straight draw, the open-ender. The 5, I just don't think he has a gut shot in this situation. After a few moments to think about it, I decide to put in the call, and we get shown Queen 9 of hearts. Unfortunately, my gut was right on the flop, and I should have gone for the re-raise, although with top pair, he may have called anyway. Queen on the turn, got us good this time. In our next interesting hand, Under the gun opens to $10. This is the best, or second best, player at the table, a very young, capable guy that I've observed ever since I've sat down. I look down at pocket 10s in the hijack. I decide to raise it up to $25. The button calls, and Under the gun calls. We are 3 ways to a flop of Queen 7-5. Once again, 2 diamonds. Under the gun now, donk leads out for $55. I'm not ready to give up on second pair just yet, and this is the young, capable guy that I kind of want to play against anyway. This is a very interesting line that he's taking. I make the call, and the button calls as well. We're now 3 ways to a turn, which comes the 4 diamonds. This feels like a familiar spot. Under the gun checks. I can't see a good reason to put more money in here at this time, so I check. The button now bets out 90. Under the gun very quickly makes it 200, and now we have a very easy decision. We can let this one go. However, I am extremely interested to see how this hand turns out. The button goes all in and Under the gun snap calls. All right, the river is the jack of clubs. Even though Under the gun called and technically should have shown first, the button turns over King 6 of diamonds and Under the gun mucks. That's too bad, as I really wanted to see what Under the gun had in this spot, but not to worry, he and I are going to mix it up plenty during this session. After that last hand, my stack size is dwindling a little bit, so I do reload and we're on to bullet number 2. For this next hand, we're in the big blind and have ace-8 offsuit. It's a limped pot, gets around to me, and I check. The flop comes ace-king-queen. Say it with me now, 2 diamonds. I check, and Under the gun plus 2 opens to $23. Interesting sizing, but with top pair, I make the call, and we're heads up. The turn is now the 4 of hearts. I check. Under the gun plus 2 bets out $60. This 4 doesn't really change anything about the texture of the hand. If we were ahead on the flop, we should still be ahead now on the turn, but I am starting to get a little suspicious. I make the call. The river is the deuce of hearts. I check, once again, hoping to just take my value to showdown, And once again, that's not gonna happen. Apparently today, cheap showdowns are literally not in the cards. Under the gun plus 2 bets $100. If I call the flop and turn bet, a 4 and deuce of hearts really shouldn't change anything, so I should be good here most of the time, right? I don't know, something just feels off, and I suddenly get the overwhelming feeling that I am not good in this spot. It was a limped pot, and it just feels like a one pair hand wouldn't be making these sorts of bets. In the past, I would have just flicked in the call without much thought, knowing that I've already in for 100, what's 100 more, right? But I'm trying to get much better about these situations and analyze them, get rid of the term pot committed, which is something I really don't like. If you feel like you're behind, it's okay to fold, no matter what the odds are. This is something that I'm personally working on in my game, and I encourage every one of you to do as well. If you feel like you are behind, if you have a gut feeling you are not good, you never have to put another dollar in the pot. I make a disciplined fold. In this situation, if we're going to play this hand out, what I should have done is raise on either the flop or the turn to take control of the pot rather than just call and have to fold to river pressure. It's possible my opponent bluffed me in this situation, but I put myself in that situation by making a bad play and not raising on the turn. I really don't mind these spots as long as we can learn from them and improve our game going forward. After that last hand, I proceeded to lose a few smaller pots here and there, and I could tell that I wasn't playing my A game. When I find myself in these situations, I will often intentionally not reload until I'm in a better headspace and feel that I'm back on my A game. As a result, my stack has dwindled down to only $70 when I look down at pocket kings in the hijack. There are a few limpers to me. I open to $15. The button raises to 45, it folds back around to me. Only one thing to do in this situation, I go all in and the button calls. We run out the board and I hold a full double up from, 70 to 140, but hey, the long road to recovery has begun. In our next interesting hand, I look down at ace king, once again in the hijack. I open to $15. We get not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 callers. Exactly what I want with ace king. We are 87 ways to a flop of king 6-4, 2 spades. Small blind now leads for $25. I only have 107 remaining in my stack. There's only one move here. Once again, I'm all in. It folds around to the small blind who calls pretty quickly. We run out the board and once again, hold. The small blind now looks a little annoyed and accidentally reveals a king from his hand, but in this case, we had the best king. We double up again, this time to $250. The stack grows larger. For our next wonderful win wager, we look down at ace 10 suited middle position. There's a few limpers and I open to $15. The button calls, the big blind calls, and it gets around to under the gun plus 2 who does something unexpected and raises to 100. Normally this should be a pretty easy fold, but I am down quite a bit still and very, very suspicious of this play. It looks a little bit like a squeeze play after this player initially just limped in. We also have removal to aces, so I make the call. We are heads up to a flop of ace, queen, jack, 2 diamonds. Under the gun plus 2 shoves. I've got a pretty easy call here for only 150 more. I make the call. The board runs out and she shows pocket kings. I table my hand and am not at all ashamed to accept this suck out. Another full double up with a small stack, and now we have at least a regular size buy-in to play with. No more small stack strategy, thank goodness. In our next spot, we're under the gun plus 2. We look down at queen 10 offsuit. There's a straddle to $6 and I make the call. We end up 4 ways to a flop of 10, 7, 5, 2 spades. I check and it checks around. The turn is now to 5 diamonds. This is a great card as it reduces any possible small sets we could be up against. I decide to take the lead here and bet out a small sizing of $10. Middle position now raises to 20. This is the same player that we've gotten all in twice against now and doubled up with stack sizes of 70 and 150. Needless to say, he is not a fan of me. However, I do not like facing a min raise in this spot. It kind of feels like a 5, just trying to suck out a little extra bit of value, especially multi-way. It folds around to me, and we do have top pair here for only $10 more, and factoring in that this guy has a little bit of a vendetta against me, I decide to make the call. The river is the miracle 10 of spades. Now, leading in this spot would be screaming at the top of my lungs, look at me, I have a 10. Plus, I'm pretty sure this guy still wants to put in more money, so I check. Our opponent obliges and bets out $50. I really want to call in this spot, so the only question is how big can we go to ensure we get a call while still trying to make the max? If he does have a 5, the sizing really doesn't matter because he'll call anything, and if we don't go all in, there's a chance he shoves on top of us. However, if he doesn't have a 5 and instead has like a pocket pair such as 6s or 8s, maybe even ace high, he might be able to call a decent size without shoving. So I eventually decide on a raise size of $150. Our opponent tanks for quite a while here. Any thought that we could be chopping is out the window, so that's a good news. It appears he doesn't have a 5 either, as he looks legitimately pained making this decision. However, he does eventually make the call. I table my hand and we take it down. He claims to have had the ace-high flush, and if that's the case, then I fully understand why he was tanking for so long, as it was a limped pot and it was very likely I had a 5 or a 10, but it's also hard to lay that down. Very happy to continue building a big stack after being down to only $70 at our low point. In our next hand, there's a straddle to $6, and I look down at Queen 9 suited in the low jack. I make the call, the button makes the call, and it gets around to the original straddler, who now bumps things up to $31. The villain in the straddle is the good young player from earlier, and I want to be involved with him whenever possible. I make the call, the button comes along as well. We're 3 ways to a flop of Jack 10-5, 2 spades. Now we're open-ended against one of the most aggro players at the table. This is a great spot to be in. He leads out for $75. I very happily make the call, knowing that if we can bank a king or an 8, this has the potential to be the hand of the day. A double in this situation would mean a hell of a lot more than the earlier doubles where we got it all in short stacked. I make the call and the button folds. Come on, dealer, one time. I put myself in the right situation at the right time with the right hand against the right guy. Show me a king or an 8. The universe grants my wish and the turn is the king of spades. Let's go. Yes. I don't love that it completes spades, but flushes are hard to make, and this guy led pre-flop and continued on the flop. As of this moment, it feels like he has a big pair, such as aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace-king, ace-queen maybe. Please, dear Lord, don't let it be ace-queen. So he either has an overpair like aces, a set of kings, a set of queens, which would make him open-ended, a set of jacks, a lot of combinations that I'll be willing to put money in and we are very far ahead of, other than ace-queen. He now checks. I have to decide how much money to put in here to get a call while ensuring not to scare him off. I eventually decide on a sizing of $200. Our opponent now does something that I was not prepared for and snap shoves all in. My heart immediately sinks. I wanted to get the money in good on this turn card, but now I'm concerned that we no longer have the best hand. I just cannot imagine anything other than a flush taking this line. Maybe ace-queen with the ace or queen of spades, but in that scenario, we're also completely dead. How do I suddenly just have a bluff catcher after making my hand? This is unbelievable. This is one of the toughest spots I can ever remember being in. In real time, I am struggling with this one.
My hand's not dead if I turn it over, right? Like, so sick here, man. Like, my gosh. But I just feel like there's no way. There's no way it's a bluff. Oh my gosh, but I'm already in for 2 and 3 and I only have, what, 300 behind? You show me if I fold? No? You plead the 5th. Oh. This is so gross. I mean, if I lose here, if I fold, I'm just handicapped. This is a chance to get it all.
All right, guys. I know what happens next, but I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think happens next. Comment down below what you think I do in this spot, and I'd also love to know what you would do in this spot. Throw in what you think my opponent has as well. I really want to see what you guys think happens in the conclusion of this hand. This was a wild roller coaster of a session, had tons of highs and tons of lows. I was down to only $70 at one point, and there are so many hands that I'm dividing this up into 2 parts. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on to find out what happens in this wild hand in the next one. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week for the conclusion of this hand, plus much more. Good luck out there, guys.